The headlines are loud again. Not just loud, but chaotic, stacked on top of each other, contradicting themselves and demanding attention all at once. It feels familiar, almost ritualistic at this point. Every few months, the media machine whirs back into action, declaring yet another royal controversy. And somehow, almost magically, the spotlight swings back toward the same people who supposedly left the drama behind. And yes, once again, the names being dragged into the noise are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, or, as we will rightly call her, Meghan Sussex. But here's the uncomfortable twist the headlines don't quite know how to handle. This time, the embarrassment doesn't belong to Harry. It doesn't belong to Meghan Sussex. It belongs to the very institution and individuals the press has spent years shielding while pointing fingers elsewhere. Because while Harry continues to be criticised for speaking honestly, for stepping away, for protecting his wife, and for refusing to perform obedience on command, his uncle Prince Andrew has once again reappeared in the public record under circumstances that no amount of silence can sanitize. And this isn't tabloid recycling. This isn't speculation dressed up as outrage. This is newly released material connected to Jeffrey Epstein documents, emails, and references that pull Andrew's name back into an international conversation he has never convincingly exited. What's striking is not just Andrew's reappearance in these files, but the reaction or lack thereof. No statement, no accountability, no urgent calls for transparency. Just the same long-standing strategy of saying nothing and letting time dull public outrage. And somehow that silence is still framed as dignity. Meanwhile, Harry, who has not commented on this latest development at all, is once again positioned as the problem. His past words are resurfacing, not because he is provoking controversy, but because reality keeps catching up to what he already said. Anyone who has read Spare or even paid attention beyond the headlines screaming "Bid a Prince" already knows where Harry stands on Andrew. There was no nostalgia in his reflections, no soft language, no institutional shielding, just clarity. Harry did something profoundly disruptive. He compared treatment. He didn't ask for special favours, he didn't demand superiority. He asked a simple, devastating question: why were his protections removed while Andrew's remained intact? In Spare, Harry recounts explaining to Meghan Sussex that he couldn't make sense of it. Not emotionally, not logically. One man faced allegations that would end any ordinary public career instantly, yet retained security and status. Another man stepped away from official duties, told the truth about his experiences, and was stripped of protection. Harry wrote that people might have grievances toward him and Meghan Sussex, but sexual offences were not among them. Pause there, because that single comparison dismantles years of media gaslighting. This wasn't bitterness, this wasn't vengeance, this wasn't a tantrum. This was a factual observation that exposed an imbalance so stark it became impossible to defend. And that's when the narrative shifted. Suddenly, Harry wasn't raising concerns, he was attacking. He wasn't telling his story, he was airing dirty laundry. He wasn't pointing out hypocrisy, he was being disloyal. The system doesn't punish dishonesty, it punishes disruption. And Harry disrupted the illusion. Let's talk about the media response, because it deserves scrutiny of its own. The same press ecosystem that obsessed over Meghan Sussex's posture, her facial expressions, her clothing, and even the way she held her own child, has consistently twisted itself into philosophical pretzels to minimize Andrew's controversies. Outrage has been selective, accountability conditional. Harry's tone in interviews was dissected endlessly. Meghan Sussex's body language was treated like evidence in a trial. Meanwhile, Andrew's silence was praised as restraint. The hypocrisy isn't subtle, it's institutional. Harry's comments in Spare weren't reckless. If anything, they were measured. He didn't speculate, he didn't exaggerate, he didn't invent. He simply placed two realities side by side and let the contrast speak for itself. And now, years later, as Andrew's name resurfaces in newly released documents, that contrast looks even sharper. What makes this situation almost absurd is how quickly certain commentators rush to lecture Harry about loyalty and discretion. As though silence in the face of serious allegations is some kind of moral achievement. As though refusing to speak is inherently more virtuous than refusing to lie. Harry didn't invent this problem. He didn't create these allegations. He didn't force these documents into existence. He simply refused to pretend they didn't exist. And for that, he was treated as the threat. Apparently, honesty is only acceptable when it's vague enough to be ignored. When it names names, when it points to patterns, when it threatens the illusion of control, then it becomes unacceptable. Harry naming the elephant in the room didn't make him rebellious. It made him responsible. And what likely frustrates his critics most is that time keeps validating his position. What's also telling is that Harry isn't alone in wanting distance from Andrew. Reports have long suggested that Prince William himself wanted no association and was among those urging King Charles III to remove Andrew's remaining royal titles. That move eventually happened years later than it should have, but only after the optics became impossible to defend. When even the palace can no longer justify the situation, you know it has crossed from uncomfortable to untenable. And yet, even now, the narrative contorts itself to avoid full accountability. Harry speaks, he's attacking. Harry stays quiet, he's hiding. Andrew stays silent, and suddenly silence is noble. The contrast would be comedic if it weren't so revealing. This is exactly why Harry and Meghan Sussex choosing truth over performance matters. They didn't walk away to be liked. They didn't leave to score points. They walked away because they recognized how deeply broken the system was. Harry pointing out that Andrew retained protection while he and Meghan Sussex lost theirs wasn't just personal frustration. It was a warning flare, a signal that the rules were never applied evenly. And now, years later, the headlines are proving him right. What's especially rich is how critics accuse Harry of airing dirty laundry while remaining completely unbothered by stains that refuse to wash out. Harry didn't create these scandals. He didn't fabricate allegations. He didn't invent documents. He simply refused to look away. That isn't disloyalty. That's integrity. So when people ask why Harry sounded angry and Spare, maybe the better question is, why wouldn't he be? When truth is punished and silence is rewarded, frustration isn't drama, it's a rational response. History doesn't move quickly, but it moves honestly. The truth doesn't need to shout forever. It just needs time. And time has a way of exposing who was protected, who was scapegoated, and who was telling the truth from the very beginning. And with that, we'll leave it here. If you value conversations that cut through hypocrisy instead of catering to it, consider supporting the channel by tapping Super Thanks. It genuinely helps keep this space alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a deep dive that refuses to play along with convenient narratives. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is far from over.